Hey, these brothers. Man, I woke up to a text this morning, man, from a brother of mine. And what he did was hold me to my word, man. He said, so last month you said you were going to talk about this thing, man. You were going to talk about how Jezebel, gets her victim. You were going to talk about, shape shifting and all this stuff, bro. And me keeping to my word, brothers, I want to talk about that this morning, right? And really one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk about this from the get-go is because I believe this is, one of the greatest hurdles of men. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we can go back to the Bible talking about Samson, talking about how a lot of men had their power robbed from them. We can look around in civilization and society and look at the men that are sleeping on park benches, looking at the men that can never get their life back in order after a bad relationship. So I consider this to be, man, a great hurdle that us as men, man, we have to learn to overcome, right? So that's one of the main reasons I want to talk about it. And another reason I want to talk about it is because in a video I posted some time ago, and I'll leave a link, a brother asked me a good question, man. He said, Soul, he said, man, like you made beautiful faces of evil. Like you've talked about this. Like you talked about how your father fell victim to this, man. How did you fall victim to Jezebel? And there were a few people that came under the comments, man, and defended it and said, hey, they were saying this and saying that. But in my mind, I was like, that's a damn good question. Matter of fact, I was waiting on somebody to ask me that. Like, so you damn near wrote the book on this. How did you allow a Jezebel? How did you allow a succubus back in your life? Right? And I'm going to tell you this, brothers. I believe the worst thing a man can do is to think that he's outwitted that devil, or to think that he's so smart when it comes to a certain thing that he's immune to it. Because once you understand how that entity works, you can really understand, man, how anybody, man, can really fall victim to it. So that's just really why I want to talk about that today, man. I want to say this first, brothers. You got to understand, when we're talking about Jezebel, spirits, succubus and all that kind of stuff, you have to understand, you have to understand these are attachments. Like when you start talking about this kind of stuff, you can't even take this personal, or you can't even really judge a person for themselves, because you got to understand, when somebody's in this spirit, and I'll be honest, it can be both men and women, because a lot of women are dealing with that Jezebel spirit in men. You have to understand it's an attachment. Something has attached to a person, right? But first, let's talk about how a person can even get to that point. How can a person even get to the point, man, where they've lost their soul and now they're fully employed by Shaitan? You know what I'm saying? And just to recap, man, in the video, I mentioned it quick. I mentioned it's a phase. It's not just a switch. It's a phase. It's a series of phases, man. And of course, I said, when it comes to women, it starts with a whole phase. And you got to understand, when I first used the word whole phase, man, some years ago, before anybody even said it, right? I was explaining a scenario where when I said that word, I said, you know what? I said, guys, you kind of want to know if she's going through her whole phase. And I was kind of putting light on the whole phase. I think I was saying something like, there's an advantage of a woman that's had a season of seeing what's out there. Because now when you get with this woman a long way, there is not this thing in the back of her mind saying, what if? In other words, if you get with a girl at 18 and y'all date for a few years and y'all get married and y'all stay married forever, there's always going to be this seed in the back of her mind saying, you know what? I've only experienced one guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is it like to be with somebody else? At least if a woman has gone through a whole phase, that she's almost scratched that itch, right? So what a whole phase is, if a woman is solid, she's upright, she's a good woman, she's wife material. She might come out of a relationship, man, and for one season, for one hot girl summer, for one weekend, for one night, she might just go outside of the box and say, you know what? Let me see what this other side is like. Let me wild out for a little bit. Let me meet this guy. Let me talk to him for D him for a little bit for a day or two, and then hook up with him. And then she might come out of there and say, oh, damn, like, I don't like the reward of this. Like, I don't like the exchange of energy or whatever it is. And she goes back to just being a solid woman. That's what a whole phase is, right? Now, when it starts to get dangerous, brothers, it's when a woman gets to that whole phase and she wants to linger around in that phase for a little bit longer. In other words, it might go from a weekend to a whole season. It might go from a whole season to a whole year. It might go from a whole hot girl summer to a series of summers, right? You got to understand, and it goes back to outwitting the devil when Napoleon talked about hypnotic rhythm, which hypnotic rhythm is nothing really but prayer. If you break it all the way down, hypnotic rhythm is prayer. So when a person is doing anything over and over, they're literally just pouring concrete on that truth. And that applies to everything. If you're going to the gym all the time, nonstop, at some point, you're going to be unconscious to you going to the gym. It's going to become your truth. So anything you do repetitively, it becomes your truth. So women go from a whole phase to being hoes, right? And really when I say hoes, all I'm saying is a woman pretty much just turns her back on really walking in wife type energy, right? She's just not saying she's a bad person. She's just a hoe. She just loves sleeping with a multitude of men, right? That's just her nature. Again, not saying she's a bad person. It's just how she moves. And this woman could even get in relationships, but she's going to always have that craving and be scratching that itch of, hey, you know what? I have to have a multitude of men, right? But this is, being in this middle stage of being a hoe, man, is when it becomes very dangerous, because this is when a lot of women or I'll say people are offered to sell their souls. Like a lot of people can be in that whole status and live their whole lives like that. Some people can even revert back and find a way to come out of that with some healing. But at the same time, when you're in that middle phase, man, that's when the devil will come offer you to sell your soul. And when you talk about selling your soul, man, I believe I made a video on that. But when you talk about selling your soul, it's just when that darkest energy come and present something to you for you to just completely turn your back on walking upright. And it could be attention, it could be money, it could be anything. Like that energy is going to find your weakness and present that to you, saying, come on over to the other side. Like if you come over here and you just solidify, if you just walk in this energy with me, like your life will do a certain thing, right? And once a person does that and that light is gleaming for a minute, they're getting the attention, they're getting this. They'll understand that by really just turning that part of their life, that good part, turning that faucet completely off, what they don't understand is what happens is now that sexual energy becomes their life force. It becomes their life force. And that's when it becomes extremely, extremely dangerous, man. And just to kind of show you and I don't want to jump ahead, but when I say it becomes their life force, like you ever see these videos, man, I see them in different cities. I know there's one in like Indianapolis. There's one in like, I think Georgia. There's different guys go around in different cities and they're entertaining. I mean, not entertaining. They're interviewing people on the street, and it's always primarily women. And it's always like beautiful women, or you can tell they used to be just bad, right? And these women, man, will be just dirty and feet all dirty, no shoes, clothes dirty, hair all over the place. But they're beautiful women, but they're just sitting there drugged up, teeth missing, all this stuff. You have to understand that once a person gets in that third stage, that whore stage, then if they ever get to the point where they can't get that life force from men, they're done. They're done. You got to understand. And again, I'm going to get to this, man. You got to understand when it comes to playing this game with these women and you're talking about life force, it's like there's always going to be a winner and a loser. So if a woman ever gets to the point where she's no longer getting that life force. Now she's strung out on drugs because she's looking for that God essence. She's strung out on alcohol. She's strung out on all these things because she has to get that some sort of life force, man, some sort of God energy, right? So when you see a woman in this whore stage, this third stage, man, it's what, that's when we normally refer to her as a Jezebel or a succubus. You got to understand, man, that regardless of what this woman looks like in society, because we can easily drive down the Harry Hines of the world, which if y'all don't know Harry Hines, that's like where all the streetwalkers are in Dallas, and every city has them. We can easily drive down the Harry Hines of the world and see women that are walking that are straight up selling. But at the same time, man, there are a lot of women that are able to walk in professional ways that carry this same energy. And I don't care what end of the spectrum she's on, she has to have a multitude of men. And to be honest, man, I think I heard the snow. I know we're supposed to be getting snow today in Dallas, man. I think I heard something coming down or rain or something, right? To be honest, man, me on the outside looking in, I wouldn't even advise a woman, and I'm speaking from the outside and I'm playing devil's advocate. If a woman's life force is having a multitude of men to rob them of their energy, for her to focus on one man is dangerous. Because if that man ever cuts ties, that means now she's done for. Now she's gonna find herself amongst the streetwalkers or the women that are cracked out because her life force is gone. So even if these women are married and professional women, they'll always have a number of men that are playing their roles on the outside. And again, they might not be sleeping with these men on the regular basis, but there's going to be energetic exchange. There's going to always be constant communication. Always. That's just how it works, right? So now let's talk about how they convince men to, how do they even get in a man's space, right? And that's when it comes to women being, or people being, shapeshifters. You got to understand, when you talk about shapeshifters, man, and of course you could, somebody could probably talk about this and break down the, all this stuff. But when you talk about a person or a woman being a shapeshifter, it's her having the ability to be different people completely, right? Now, I'm not talking about this. I'm not talking about a person being in one room and saying, hey, yeah, this is who I am, and then just kind of changing their demeanor when they go to church. I'm talking about a woman that's completely disconnecting from one identity and completely taking on the role of another. Whether you call it, I'm sure there's a medical term for it, like multiple personality, I'm sure there's a term for it. But when you talk about shapeshifters, you're talking about a person that can completely disengage from one identity and completely engage in the other one, to the point so much where they can look at a person in that other energy and be disgusted by it. But at the same time can disconnect from that one and go to this one again, or go to another one, or go to another one. I was dating a chick one time, man, and once it was over, man, I had a brother reach out to me, and he was like, yeah, man, kind of telling me he knew the person I was dating, and he was like, bro, I knew that wasn't what it was. Like, that's not what you think it is. And he's telling me this, telling me all these stuff, telling me how she moved. I'm like, ain't no way, bro. I said, this woman I was with, like, we got to be talking about somebody else. This woman I was with, man, was catering, was spoiling me, was cooking, was goddamn wife type, man. And he was like, no, bro, like, that ain't what it was. Look at this. Look at the messages she was da. And I'm like, in my brain, I'm like, how? I'm like, how can a person go from one extreme to so far different? Like, how can a person be housewife this? How can a person be, the perfect church person? Then how can a person be a straight up whore? And it comes down to shape-shifting, man. You got to understand, when that Jezebel spirit or that succubus spirit takes over a woman, she has the ability to shape-shift. You got to understand, the reason a person has to shape-shift is because that's how they get inside. Like, a woman can easily be, present herself. You got to understand, like, that devil energy is cunning. The Bible says that devil energy is smart. Proverbs 5, study her. She's smart. She's smooth with words. But what the succubus does is finds, she'll find, and I'll say the holes in a man's armor, but she'll find the things that man is desiring and become that. So if a man is desiring a woman that's going to cook and clean and do all these things, if a man is desiring a woman that's going to be freaky in the bed or this, if a man is desiring a woman that's going to be business savvy and have all these acumen in this area, then that entity can become that thing. And again, it's not even personal. It's not even that woman at that point or that man at that point. It's that entity. It's that entity having taken control. So that's how an entity, that's how that Jezebel spirit or succubus spirit finds their way in a man's life. And then at that point, it becomes a matter of how do I say? I'll say it like this. Gary V wrote a book, and he was talking about like sales, I believe. Sales. I haven't read the book, but he wrote a book. I want to say it's called like Jab, Jab, Hook, or Punch, Punch, Jab, or something like that. And what Gary V was pretty much explaining is saying, you know what, you give people a certain thing for so long, right? You give people a certain thing for so long, and once they trust you, once they value who you are and know what you're about, then you jab. Like that's when you give them the offer, right? Sales talk, right? That's the same type mentality that the Jezebel spirit has or the succubus spirit has, right? It's like, okay, I understand what that man's desires are. I understand what that woman's desires are. Let me jab. Let me give it to him. Give it to him. Give it to him. Give it to him. And once I feel like they're sold, once I feel like he's giving me a portion of his heart, now I'm going to give him the hook. But the hook in the Jezebel spirit is the removal of that thing. Like if I'm giving you love, if I'm giving you sex, if I'm giving you spoiling, if I'm giving you this thing, once I've convinced you that this is who I am, now I'm going to stop that. And it gets to the third point I want to talk about on how that succubus feeds off of a man. Because I'll say it like this. When it comes to how a succubus feeds off of a man, of course, there's levels to it, right? Of course, in the easiest form, like the rudimentary type form on how she feeds off of a man is sex, right? That's why you have the streetwalkers going out there saying, $40 we can get down. They're just saying, hey, you know what? Like $40, I in exchange for your life force. That's like the oldest way to get it, the most simple way to get it. That's why, that's the most obvious way. That's why we can drive and see women moving like that and be like, damn, this is what she is. Because that's just the smallest way to get that. So sex. So bro, that's why I'm always telling y'all brothers, man, like it's cool to hook up with these women and connect and get to know a woman. But bro, you just tossing your wand around like that, bro. Like if you moving like that, man, as a grown man, it's like, bro, you man, be more patient, bro. Be more patient and observe who you walk with, because once you give that life force through sex, you're just giving it directly to her. Like it takes no work for her to get that God essence in you, because that's what they feed off of. When I say life force, like the only life force is essence, right? So that's the easiest way she feeds off of a man. And that's when, when a man thinks he's doing a certain thing by having a rotation, and it's like, man, it seems like you're the man, but bro, you don't understand. These women are sitting there like, yeah, like bring it on, like give me that essence of yours, right? So boom, that's one part. But the second part is, and it goes back to me saying how a woman is going to jab, then hook, or give, and then remove, because the primary way. The way that the greats of the Jezebel world feed off of is they don't want that sexual energy. Like that's bottom line. They want that emotional energy, because that emotional energy, bro, and I've talked about this in a number of videos, that emotional energy is God essence. Your emotional energy is God essence. So if she can get that physical loving from you and get that sex from you, she might can feed off of that for a day or two. But if she can get that emotional energy, brother, she can feed off of that for life. She can feed off of that for life. So you got to understand, if a woman has a multitude of men that she's getting that emotional energy from, and she's thriving, and people look at the people in certain places in the world, and they be like, man, she ain't nothing but this. Like, she a hoe. How she thriving like that? It's like, you got to understand the inner workings of what's taking place. Like, man, she was on porn, she was on this, she was on that, and now she's thriving. You got to understand what's taking place. She's living off the souls of many men, right? So going back to that jab, hook, going back to that give, remove. The only way she can feed off of your emotional energy is to throw you off balance. Like, there's always a balance. Like, when I'm talking about standing on your square, balance, and a million other words, it's all about being balanced between light and dark. Like, when I talk about being in that kingdom is all about balance. I just posted a short about that, all about balance, right? If somebody can throw you off balance, either way, now your energy is there's a hole in the bucket. Now your energy is going one way or the other. So if a woman can throw you off balance by taking that whatever thing away from sex, love, catering, whatever, if she can take that away from you, and now you're like, hey, what's going on? And you're off balance. Now you're pouring into her. If she can pull away hard enough to the point where she leaves your life, that's when you see a lot of men that are talking for years, man. They're like, bro, I can't recover. My life is doing this. I have no creative power. I'm stuck in my job. My money is funny and I don't know why. Or you see these men that go into depression, or worst case scenario, like I'm always saying, living up under bridges and don't know why. It's because energetically, whether it's anger, whether it's whatever type of emotional energy, is still going toward that woman. And she's long gone. She's long gone. Like that's how the succubus feeds off of a man. Like, that's how she takes his energy. But I'm gonna tell you this, bro. Like I said, it goes both ways. It's a very risky game to play for Jezebel. Because if Jezebel ever crosses a man's path that walks in a certain energy, and she's going through all the motions, I'm gonna identify his desires, I'm gonna jab, remove, right? And then she removes it and takes off and goes the other way with his energy. Because you gotta understand, it works like a siphon. Have y'all ever siphoned gas out of a gas tank? Like, you gotta start that pump going, and once it's going, it's going. Or when nurses kind of tap into your vein and they do a certain thing, and once it starts flowing, now it's flowing. You know what I'm saying? That's the energetic pool. Like, once they can get that pool and it's going, it's like now it's flowing. But the dangerous thing is, if a Jezebel energy ever goes through the motion and takes off thinking that life force is going to follow them, and that man is aware, yeah, you might have did all the things, but I'm balanced, and she takes off, she's screwed. She's screwed. Because now she's taking off thinking that a certain thing is going to be like all the other men in her web, all the other men that are still pouring her energy. If she takes off and that man holds it square and just observes, like take your ass type energy, now she has a huge hole open. Now she has a hole in her bucket. Now she's living around. Now she's walking around, man, and that essence that she holds is now pouring out. Now, the dangerous part about that is this: once that hole is there on the Jezebel and that God energy is draining out, you have to understand that God energy is what's keeping her thriving. That God energy is what makes her attractive to other men. So what will happen very quickly, man, is that woman will a lot of these men in her web will begin to see her for what she is. You know, I ain't gonna even speak on that, bro. But yeah, it's when a lot of men will see for her for what she is, and that's when they get to calling other men saying, "Hey, bro, this, you know, whatever," right? But that's when you will see women in their life is just falling to shit. Because that God essence is leaking out. And going back to the whole shapeshifter thing, man, like, you got to understand, not even the shapeshifter stuff, but just sticking on that God energy. You got to understand, when that God energy is pouring out of a person, any person. You have to understand, you can see that. You can see that on a person's face. You can actually see a person and they can look one way one day, and the next day it's like, damn, they look older. Like, why they look so damn old all of a sudden? Like it's because that God energy, that life force is pouring out. So at that state, man, Jezebel is just running around in circles, man. And if she doesn't get a hold on that leak, then it's death. It's energetic death. It's a beautiful woman now living under a bridge saying, I don't know what happened. Like I'm saying, that God energy goes both ways. Either she can put a man under that bridge, or she can run into a whole hierophant and run off with a hole in her side, and now her life is destroyed. Right? But that's how that works, brothers. And again, I think it's important, man, because there's no man immune to it. Like I believe even the strongest willed men, I believe even the most knowledgeable men can fall victim to a Jezebel, man. But I think that if you stand on your square, bro, if you just move a certain way, if you have certain barriers up, and to be honest, a lot of those barriers we have as men are so far out. We guard ourselves, but we got to start putting check valves in our lives, man. Where of course, where energy just flows a certain way, man, where this energy really can't, we just got to have better discernment, bro. But regardless, if you do ever cross that energy and you identify what it is, brother, I'm gonna tell you this. As soon as you identify what it is, like there's no more talking. As soon as you identify what it is, bro, cut it off instantly. Cut it off mid-sentence. There's no, oh, well, let's talk about that. Oh, well, this is what happened. This is none of that, bro. Like, once you identify what, I'm gonna say this. You can date a lot of women, man, and things may go sour. Y'all just go separate ways. Y'all had a fallout. That's normal. But if you ever encounter that succubus energy, as soon as you identify what it is, cut it off instantly, bro. Because you got to understand, her whole game is to throw you off emotionally. It's like, anything you want to say to me after this, I understand what the point of it is. Cut it off and be done with it, bro. Because if not, man, you will find yourself in a bad situation, man. So again, man, just stand on your square, brothers. Just stand in your truth. And as men, we just have to be aware, brothers.